What up, Homedawgs? My name is Gokey Gamer, and welcome everybody to week 3 of the PUDL, where this week we're going to be taking on Coach Eli and the team, the Abominable Darmanitans. I'm not retaking that. Also, I apologize for the bare background. I am actually moving the day after I film this, which is 2 days before this video is supposed to go up. I have no idea if this video is going to go up on time because I have to edit it tonight and there's still a decent amount of stuff I have to pack, as you can tell, so this is going to be interesting. Back to the actual intro. This is actually the first time Eli is battling with this team since he has taken it over from the previous coach, so we are both hoping for our very first win of the season this week. Now that being said, the team my opponent took over is extremely terrifying, so let's go ahead and get into the team breakdown and talk about it. So my opponent this week is one of the scariest teams I've seen in a while. The team consists of arguably the best draft league Pokemon in the entire game, being Dragapult, as well as the Pokemon Clefable, Empoleon, Iron Moth, Galarian Zapdos, KROOKODILE, Serena, a Jolteon that can turn into an electric, ice, or fairy type, a Hisuian Abominable that can turn into a rock, water, or ghost type, and a Farigiraf. So yeah, needless to say, this team is extremely horrifying. Dragapult, Clefable, and Empoleon are going to be really tough monsters to take out. 2 great rapid spinners in Serena and Hisuian Abominable, a fantastic Tera and Tera Jolteon, and some hard-hitting attackers like Galarian Zapdos and Iron Moth are going to make this fight extremely difficult for us. In terms of what I'm expecting to show up, I'm thinking it's going to be Dragapult, Clefable, Empoleon, Iron Moth, specifically Tera Electric or Tera Fairy Jolteon, and most likely either Serena or Galarian Zapdos. This team is going to be extremely tough to take out, so let's get into what I'm bringing and why I'm bringing it. The first Pokemon that we're bringing this week is going to be the Jester Slowking. Holding the Light Clay this week, we're rocking the moves Surf, Future Sight, Light Screen, and Chilly Reception with Regenerators by ability and max HP and defense. This is a pretty self-explanatory set. Slight spoilers, but we are bringing Kyurem this week, so Chilly Reception will become extremely beneficial for setting up the snow and getting a free switch. And Light Screen in particular looks extremely good for my team, holding several Pokemon like Jolteon, Iron Moth, and Empoleon, all of which can be very scary into my team. It's worth noting that Infiltrate or Dragapult won't care about this screen, but it's still a fantastic brain versus everything else, so I really hope the Jester can pull off some more shenanigans this week like he always does. The second Pokemon that we're going to be bringing is none other than the debut of Widowmaker the Galvantula. Holding the Expert Belt this week, we've got the moves Thunder, Bug Buzz, Sticky Web, and Tera Blast, which will become an Ice type thanks to our Tera Ice we're bringing this week. Combining our ability Compound Eyes, the Expert Belt, Thunder, and our max special attack and enough speed to outspeed Galarian Zapdos, this Pokemon is going to hopefully deal a crap ton of damage into my opponent's team, as well as severely slow them down with our webs. After Widowmaker is going to be none other than Carl Weezer the Galarian Weezing. Yes, I know I used to name him Stacks, but not gonna lie, when I thought of this name, it was way too good to pass up. Holding the Black Sludge this week, we're rocking the max HP and max defense with enough speed creep to make sure I can outspeed a minimum speed Clefable, Empoleon, and Farigiraf, as well as the moves Strange Steam, Clear Smog, Pain Split, and Thunderbolt. This week, we're also rocking the ability Misty Search to hopefully help neuter Dragapult while making our Kyurem more powerful. Combined with the Light Screen from the Jester, Carl Weezer is going to be an extremely tough Pokemon for my opponent to take out, so hopefully I can chip things down enough and tank hits well enough to allow one of our other major threats to finish off my opponent's team. Following Galarian Weezing is going to be our other physical wall this week, Taxi Driver the Corviknight. Holding the Rocky Helmet, he's also got max HP and max defense with the moves Body Press, Iron Head, Taunt, and Roost. I am not making the same mistake with this moveset that I made last week. Although I would have loved to run Bulk Up or Iron Defense this week, I wanted to run Taunt so that way I could reliably stop Clefable from 1v1ing me, because that Pokemon can be really proved to be quite the issue if I allow it to be. This and Galarian Weezing are the main reasons I'm running Light Screen on the Jester. Our physical walls looks absolutely amazing this week, but our special defenses leave a lot to be desired. In fact, speaking of the especially defensive Pokemon, let's talk about our next bring being Hatsune Miku the Meloetta. Holding the leftovers this week, we've got the moves Hyper Voice, Psyshock, Calm Mind, and Alluring Voice. Once again, I refuse to make the same mistakes I made last week. We've also got max special defense, a decent amount of HP, and enough speed to outspeed a Jolly Serena and Jolteon after webs. In general, this set can just cause a lot of havoc into my opponent's team, especially with walling mons like Iron Moth and Jolteon, 2 mons that my physical walls have a harder time against. Combine that with our moveset dealing a lot of damage against majority of my opponent's team, I think this set could definitely cause a lot of issues against my opponent. And finally, finally, to round out the team is a Pokemon the keen-eared viewers will already know about, which is Husk the Kyurem. Holding the Assault Vest this week, we've got the moves Draco Meteor, Freeze Dry, Flash Cannon, and Earth Power, with max special attack and enough speed to outspeed everything under webs besides Zapdos and Dragapult. So, I'm not gonna lie, I actually built this set with a Choice Scarf in mind, as it provided a huge dent against my opponent, and had the opportunity to just win me the game once things got chipped down enough and certain mons like Dragapult and Galarian Zapdos were taken care of. However, looking at my opponent's team, I realized that Choice Scarf Zapdos and Clear Body Dragapult could prove to be a huge issue for me, so instead I opted to run Assault Vest to help tank hits from the special attackers more easily. This also allows me to swap my moves if needed instead of being choice locked, which I think is extremely important in this game. And that's the team we're bringing this week for the PUDL. While we do have a really tough game ahead of us, I think this team definitely has what it takes to get us the W, even with the last minute change in Kyurem. Without any further ado, let's go ahead and whop into the battle. Whop! Okay, so really quickly before we get started with the video, unfortunately I was not able to get this video out on time, as you guys can probably tell. I'm recording this literally the day I'm hoping to get it up, which is Wednesday, the July 3rd. And once again, the audio did not record for the battle, which is the main reason why I was not able to get this video up on time. I had to once again do a post-com, which really sucks. I didn't even have time to script the post-com. I hate that I have to do this again, but you can blame technology for that. The other thing is, for whatever reason, when I recorded it, the audio sounds absolutely horrible. I don't know why, and I don't have time to fix it. I just did it the best I could, so that way hopefully it doesn't sound too terrible, but I do apologize that the audio is a lot not a lot, but a decent amount more crustier than usual. I apologize. I hate that this is what I have to put out, but I literally do not have time to re-record this battle if I want to get this battle out today. So, and in order to stay on schedule for the remaining weeks, I have to get this battle out today. So, I apologize. I hope you guys enjoy the battle regardless, because it is a very fun game. And, yeah, without any further ado, let's go ahead and walk to the battle. And we're back. I know, again, I don't know why, but once again, my audio didn't record, so I will be doing a post-com. I'm sure I explained it at the beginning of the video, and with everything going on, I'm really sorry for this video being late. I'm hoping I can get it edited and out to you guys today. I don't know if I'll be able to though, but we will see. Anyways though, I'm going to do my best to remember everything in this video as to like my thought process during the battle and everything like that. So wish me luck, I hope it goes well. Let's go ahead and get into it. So looking at the team, I see an Iron Moth, KROOKODILE, Dragapult, Galarian Zapdos, Abominable and Jolteon. Immediately, I'm very glad not to see the Clefable or Empoleon, because I thought both of them had a very good chance to make an appearance, especially against my team. I'm also happy not to see a Serena and Farigiraf there, mainly because I don't really know that much about Farigiraf, and also with Serena, it could cause problems for me in general. My webs will have a harder time staying up, but in general, I am pretty happy to see this team, because I know at least with this team I can actually do pretty decently well against it. So, without any further ado, let's go ahead and actually hop into the battle. So, immediately hopping into the battle, I opt to go with my lead, Slowking, the Jester the Slowking, to hopefully either fire off a Light Screen or a Chilly Reception. And my opponent ends up leading Jolteon. I don't know what it is about me and leads. I'm very horrible with them. I don't understand it. But, I mean, it makes sense that Jolteon is the lead here, just because of the fact that, you know, it's a free Volt Switch against pretty much everything on my entire team minus Kyurem. But, that being said, you know, this is definitely not ideal. I really need to get better about predicting my leads. So now here I'm trying to figure out if either I want to go into Husk or Hatsune Miku, because I don't know whether this thing is going to want to Tera off rip. This could be a Tera Grass Jolteon, obviously, but in general, or sorry, not Tera Grass, never mind, that's the other Jolteon I battled. Spoiler alert, there's another league where I battled a Jolteon that was Tera Grass. But, I am concerned about this Jolteon putting in a lot of work. And so I'm currently debating whether I want to switch into Kyurem, predicting, like, an electric move, or into Hatterene, or into Meloetta, predicting just general bulk. And I opt to switch into Kyurem here. I am risking an alluring voice, but I figured, you know what, it's worth it here. So I'm going to go ahead and send in Kyurem with the Assault Vest. This will probably tell my opponent that I am Assault Vested, which is the other reason I was debating about doing this. But we do see the Volt Switch pop off, and I can't remember if this was Specs damage or not, or if it was even Scarf. I actually cannot remember. I believe this was a Specs Jolteon, but I could be mixing up my battles again. I'm doing my best to remember. I apologize in advance. And now we immediately see the Dragapult, aka the Dragapult, which was this is the Pokemon I was expecting to come out here. This just pretty much gives me a free switch into Carl Weezer just because of the general bulk. This will also tell me whether or not it is like physical or special, which will be great information to know going forward into the battle. I could also opt to switch into Meloetta, so Dragapult just has a very rough time in general against my current team because I have a Ghost immunity and I have a Dragon immunity, both of which could come in here, and one is specially bulky, one is physically bulky. So in order to get intel, I opt to send in my Misty Surge, the Galarian Weezing. This could also give me a free double into Meloetta as well because I heavily resist the Dragon move, so if they opt to stay in and click, say, a Shadow Ball, I can freely switch into Meloetta, and it can 1v1 Dragapult very reliably. So my opponent actually doubles predicting the swap, and they end up going into Pizza Hut, which is obviously the Iron Moth, which is not that great for me. They were definitely predicting the switch into Galarian Weezing. Now granted, it is nice getting our Misty Surge up, but that does imply to our opponent that, hey, we are Misty Surge, we're not Levitate, we're not anything else, so that is something we have to keep in mind as Krookodile looks a lot more free now. But now I just opt to go ahead and immediately switch into Hatsune Miku. This is always my switch into Iron Moth because the Meloetta can just take hits for days from Iron Moth, as that's what Meloetta is meant to do this week. It's meant to come in against special attackers. We also have Kyurem as well, but Kyurem does not resist both the stabs, and I want to save Kyurem specifically for the other special attackers such as Dragapult after the Misty Terrain, as well as things like possibly Iron Moth, but particularly the Jolteon. I am really worried about Jolteon in this game. So I switch out, and then I immediately bring in Hatsune Miku, which can also pretty much one-shot it. I think it's a roll to one-shot with Psyshock, but we do see the agility pop off, which is a bit concerning for me, because I'm like, oh crap, this thing could be weakness policy. And if it is, that's a problem. So I think I do a calc here, and I learn that Psyshock is a roll to KO in my favor. I do opt to go for a Hyper Voice, though, just because I don't want to reveal the Calm Line in case they do swap, predicting the Krookodile switch, and it's Hamburglar that comes in, which I believe is in fact the Krookodile. It would have been amazing to fire off an Alluring Voice here, but I figured Hyper Voice was just a very good neutral play. This gives me the free switch into Corviknight. Corviknight is meant to 1v1 Crook, that's all I need to do, and yeah, very easy to do. As you can tell with my expression, I'm like, it's the thing to do. Corviknight just comes in, easily 1v1s Krookodile. And now we see a Smackdown, which is a little bit concerning, because now I am weak to ground moves. So that is very interesting, but a very popular set with Corviknight is Body Press. So Body Press will definitely KO Krookodile here. I'm trying to debate what I want to do. I'm predicting a switch, but I want to figure out if I want to stay in or not. Or if this thing wants to, say, go for rocks or something like that. Or even the Dragapult could come in predicting the easy Body Press, and I can just click Iron Head and get some decent damage off. Or I can predict Taunt and get, once again, predicting a switch. So I opt to click Iron Head here as the Krookodile reveals Bulk Up. Now keep in mind, even at +1, unless this thing was Tropical Berry, and I even think maybe even with Tropical Berry it still would have been a KO, we would have picked up the KO against this Crook and it would not have hit me. So I'm like, okay, I just click Body Press now, get rid of this thing while I can. And my opponent will eventually reveal the Earthquake. And believe it or not, but Earthquake does actually one-shot Taxi Driver, which takes me completely by surprise. This really sucks because Corviknight is in general really solid against several Pokemon. This also reveals the Moxie, which is a bit concerning. We do have Galvantula in the back, which can one-shot it with Bug Buzz, so it's not a concern. And we even have like Kyurem, although I don't think, if I remember correctly, Kyurem does not have the speed investment, but that's whatever. So we do send in Galvantula, easy pick the KO. This was Krookodile's main job, which is getting rid of the Corviknight, which is again a bit concerning. Corviknight was particularly solid against Hisuian Avalugg. It was particularly solid against a number of Pokemon, but it was especially the Galarian Zapdos as well. But again, we do still have Galarian Weezing for those Pokemon in the back, particularly Galarian Weezing for Galarian Zapdos, which I'm expecting to be scarfed at this point in the battle. I went into this pretty much expecting a Choice Scarf Zapdos set, just because it makes sense against a team with webs, against like so many Pokemon that would benefit from webs normally being weak to the Galarian Zapdos, and I figured, you know what, he could expect me bringing a Choice Scarf Kyurem, which I did almost bring, so that's why I'm expecting the Choice Scarf Galarian Zapdos, especially at this point in the game. So I do fire off the Bug Buzz, and Galvantula picks up the KO, thankfully, which is obviously very, very nice for ya boy. I did not opt to Tera, just that way I could have that in the back, just that way I could keep it to myself for as long as possible, just in case something like the Dragapult came in, or something else like that. And now we do see the Jolteon coming back in. Now, Jolteon could be Tera Flying, which is weak to Tera Blast, which is weak to the Ice-type Tera Blast, but it could also be Tera Ice, in which case I don't do that much to it. Bug Buzz does a decent chunk against Jolteon, and there's not much Jolteon can do to me in return, but my thought process here is that I do want to keep Galvantula around as much as possible so that way I can weaken things down. After much deliberation though, I opt to stay in and go for a Sticky Webs, as my opponent does end up Volt Switching out. If I remember correctly, I believe they probably go into Iron Moth. Yes, they do go into Iron Moth as I set up the webs. The setting of the webs in general is very nice for me. Dragapult could be Clear Body, but if it's not, it gets its speed lowered. Same with Jolteon if it's not Heavy Duty Boots. And this gives me another free swap into Hatsune Miku. I'm at full HP. There's nothing stopping me from clicking Psyshock now, even if the Iron Moth does go for an agility or something like that. So I go into Meloetta as my opponent reveals the Meteor Beam, which is a very terrifying move, obviously. I ran that week 1 in the SDA, it was very fun. And this also reveals that it is in fact the Power Herb. So now this thing is at +1 special attack and is a pretty devastating threat. However, we do take it really, really surprisingly well, which reveals that we are in fact a bulky set. However, this does mean we can guarantee take a hit, I believe we can even tank a crit, and we can just fire off a Psyshock for free, which will do a crap ton of damage to this thing, and then we can send in Kyurem later on to finish this thing off. We do fire off the Psyshock here, and in fact, one-shots the Iron Moth. So Iron Moth successfully goes down, that's another major threat out of the way, and Meloetta's job here is pretty solidly done. Granted, Dragapult could still be a massive threat, and Galarian Zapdos could be very annoying as well, particularly if it's Scarfed, and obviously it's always nice to have a Pokemon in the back for Jolteon. But this does bring in Hisuian Avalugg, and at this point I'm probably expecting this thing to be a Tera Ghost set, if it does opt to Tera over Jolteon. So, with the Hisuian Avalugg, I opt to switch into Galarian Weezing, which was originally my main switch in for this was Corviknight, but now that Corviknight is dead, my two main switches are going to be Slowking and the Galarian Weezing. And believe it or not, but I actually do swap into Slowking because I see this as a free opportunity to either get a heavy hit off. I can also fire off a free Future Sight, which is obviously very nice. And I'm not too worried about a Tera Ghost Tera Blast just simply because I can freely just pivot out and get the Regenerator off. Plus, even if this thing is Tera Ghost, which it does reveal that it is in fact Tera Ghost here, it loses its +1 defense boost under the snow, which is obviously very good for us, and especially good for Kyurem. We do see the Rapid Spin fire off, which is exactly what I was expecting, and as their speed raises, they are now faster than Slowking, which is a very important thing to note. Here, I believe, yes, here I do click the light screen, just so that way, I can get this thing up to, I'm predicting a Jolteon coming in, I can get the light screen off for free, and then I can easily just Chilly Reception out into Kyurem, which can really put a dent into my opponent's team, and thankfully, I believe that is exactly what ends up happening here. Never mind, the Dragapult comes in. Now I do have to keep in mind that Dragapult obviously has, one of its abilities it can have is Infiltrator. We still don't know what this ability this thing has. It could be Clear Body, it could be Infiltrator. And it could even be Cursed Body, but I don't really think it is. So now I have to figure out, okay, do I want to Chilly Reception against this or not? And I actually do opt to click the Chilly Reception as my opponent ends up clicking a U-turn. Now I believe if I had calculated that damage, I would figure out that this is most likely a special set, but I didn't bother doing that. This does go pretty well though, all things considered, because now I can just freely switch out and go into Kyurem with the Chilly Reception. Because pretty much everything else that wants to come in, minus possibly the Galarian Zapdos, does not want to deal with Kyurem. Jolteon ends up coming in though, which again gives me the freest switch into Kyurem. I don't even have to worry about Alluring Voice at this point because I do have the light screen up for several more turns, which is very nice for us. So this gives me the freest switch into Kyurem. Now after I send in Kyurem, I have to debate about what I want to do. This thing is now staying as an electric type. I opt to actually click Freeze Dry just in case my opponent wants to go for something else, and they click Alluring Voice, which as you can tell does absolutely nothing to me, and we fire off a very big hitting Freeze Dry. Does a decent chunk of damage, but not as much as I would like. So here I just click Earth Power just because, okay, the Galarian Zapdos is probably not going to come in here. I can just fire off an Earth Power, be done with it, get rid of this Jolteon, which was a major threat on the field, And this opens up a lot more Pokemon for us, particularly Galarian Weezing, being able to resist Galarian Zapdos and Hisuian Oblog and 1v1 them pretty reliably. And after that, Jolteon does end up going for another Alluring Voice, which guarantees that I pick up the KO versus this thing. We fire off the Earth Power, and it does KO Jolteon, a very big win for us, because Jolteon could easily win the game for us. And again, once again at this point, I'm kind of realizing that most likely the end game is going to be the Galarian Zapdos Scarf, which does come in next, which pretty much is like, okay, this thing is probably Scarfed, as well as the Dragapult. This also reveals to us that, this also reveals to my opponent that we are, in fact, not choiced item, and now I have to decide what I want to do here. I'm pretty sure I just switch into Galarian Weezing, and that's exactly what I do. Galarian Weezing is just the easiest play to make here, because it does, like, Galarian Zapdos cannot touch it. Galarian Zapdos can do nothing against Carl Weezer, and especially now that this Smackdown Earthquake threat that is the Krookodile is now gone, Galarian Weezing looks very, very free. And we do see the close combat, which we quad resist, and it does absolutely nothing, and we regenerate a lot of this HP back. And this forces my opponent to switch out into something else, like they just have to, so we get a free hit off on pretty much anything. So my opponent does end up switching out into the Hisuian Oblog as we fire off a Strange Steam, and this Strange Steam is just a very, very easy play to make, just because bada bing bada boom, nothing really wants to take this that well. The snow does unfortunately stop here, but we do get regenerated all the way back to full as we do see Hisuian Oblog. Now I can't remember if this was the Assault Vest set or not, I don't think it was, but here I just opt to switch into Slowking. Slowking is just a very free switch here, just because, again, like, I don't need Slowking for the rest of this game. Once this thing is gone, the Galarian Weezing can just pretty much win. And we do see the Recover, which was a pretty obvious play to make. But now we are back in with this thing, and I'm like, okay, I can do a decent amount of damage here with something. I am also debating about whether I want to fire up a Light Screen again, or whether I want to do a swap of any kind. But I think what I opt to do here is I just fire off a Future Sight, as it will do a great amount of damage against whatever wants to come in eventually later on. We do see the Tera goes Tera Blast, which does a pretty decent chunk into Slowking. It does a lot more than I expected it to. But we do freely fire off the Future Sight, so something's going to come in and take a pretty heavy chunk from this Future Sight. And our Light Screen does unfortunately wear off. I will go ahead and switch back into Carl Weezer, because Carl Weezer can tank any hit this thing wants to throw at me, and we can just get the Regenerator off, which is obviously very nice, because that means we can take another hit from the Hisuian Oblog. The more hits we can take from Hisuian Oblog, the better. They opt to double back into what I believe is the Dragapult, predicting the switch into Galarian Weezing. And we get the Regenerator off, and we just go ahead and swap into Galarian Weezing, because I very clearly want to save Slowking, because Slowking can be a pretty great mon, especially in Hisuian Oblog at this point. We can definitely still lose this battle, obviously, despite us still having 5 Pokemon, because the last 3 Pokemon, if I don't play my cards right, could just sweep me the rest of the game, so I do have to play this very carefully. Unfortunately, our Misty Surge is gone, so we do not have that up anymore, but this once again gives me a free damaging possibility with the Strange Steam. And my opponent actually opts to stay in and click Shadow Ball. So this reveals that this was in fact a special set. It does a massive chunk into us, and our special defense does fall. But we fire off the Strange Steam, and it does a very big chunk into the Dragapult, and we even get the Confusion off, which is obviously very, very nice for us. And here is where the Dragapult takes the Future Sight attack, so the Slowking ends up taking the KO, and KOs Dragapult with the Future Sight. Once again, a very, very solid play for us in general. I'm a very big fan. And we do restore a little bit of HP, but this Galarian Weezing is going to struggle to remain at full, basically. I have to be very careful with how I play this Galarian Weezing moving forward. And now we do see Espresso coming back in, and I actually opt to Pain Split here. I think this is a very good play, because Pain Split does actually work on Ghost types, and this gives me a lot of HP recovery. In return, the Hisuian Oblog won't be able to do that much damage to me, which is obviously very nice. And they do opt to just click Rapid Spin to set up speed, and I'm worried now because I'm like, wait a minute, this thing could outspeed and KO the rest of my team. I have to be very careful about how I play this if it sets up too much, because if it sets up to like +2 or even +3, this could be a massive issue. So I need to switch something out, and I need to deal damage against this. It's at this point that I definitely wish I was Tera Electric on Widowmaker. I do still stand by my Tera Ice. I think that's a very solid bring, especially when there's like a Voltabzor Jolteon on the team. You know, like, it's very unreliable to bring Tera Electric. But at this particular point, I do wish I was Tera Electric. And we do see the Recover pop off, which is obviously not that great. So here, the main purpose is I switch in Galvantula because I still outspeed everything at plus. I still outspeed it at +2, so it's not a sack. And I opt to just click Thunder here to deal as much damage as possible. I believe if this is Assault Vest, this is where I learned for certain that it's Assault Vest. In fact, yes, I'm pretty sure that is Assault Vest damage. But it does a very decent chunk, and the Hisuian Avalugg just ends up opting to go for a Terra Blast, which unfortunately does pick up the KO against me. But because this thing is still only at +1, I do still outspeed it with everything else on the team, and I can switch in something else to finish it off. And after doing some calcs, what I end up switching in is Husk the Kyurem to finish this thing off. I can't remember if, I think Freeze Dry at this point is a roll. Oh, I remember what the set was. It was max HP, max special defense. That's what this set was. After I calced it, I remember now. It was max HP, max special defense, not Assault Vest, if I remember correctly. I might be remembering that wrong, but it was something like that. So I opted to click the Freeze Dry just because it's the best neutral play. If Galarian Zapdos wants to come in for whatever reason, I can KO it. And my thought process is if it goes for Draco, then I can just switch out the next turn. They do obviously just pick up the KO against me with Body Press though, which I'm okay with because this thing will not be able to recover. I can just switch in Hatsune Miku and be done with it. So, which is obviously very good for me. At this point, I've pretty much won the game as long as I don't play too badly. Espresso is at basically nothing. I fire off a Psyshock for free just because it'll KO this, and it'll do a crap ton of damage against the Galarian Zapdos, and its stab, that's why I didn't go for Alluring Voice. And at this point, once again, I'm pretty much established that most likely the Galarian Zapdos is in fact Scarfed. So we do see the Psyshock pop off, and the Hisuian Avalugg goes down. Now, if Galarian Zapdos locks into Brave Bird, that could be a bit of an issue. I do have to play around that a little bit more because of the fact that Galarian Zapdos is at full HP, Galarian Weezing is not at full HP, and will not be able to reliably 1v1 this. So I have to stay in and click Psyshock once again as my opponent does lock into Brave Bird, which is a bit of a concern, and I'm a little bit scared. So I think what I do here actually is I switch into the Jester, I believe, to get back up to full, if I remember correctly. I might be remembering that wrong. In fact, actually what my plan is here is to fire off a Future Sight and stall out the last couple of turns, so that way Galarian Zapdos can just immediately fall and I don't have to worry about landing a Strange Theme or something like that. So we do take a decent chunk from the Brave Bird, and I opt to fire off a Future Sight. And I believe here, like, I could just click Chilly Reception here, I could swap into the Galarian Weezing Hard Swap, and that's what I opt to do because I am worried about Brave Bird being a roll. And this also gives me a free Regenerator boost once again. Regenerator really coming in clutch to this game. So Galarian Weezing comes back in, and we fire off the Misty Surge, and then my opponent once again obviously clicks Brave Bird, and which does a decent chunk into Galarian Weezing. I believe, if I remember correctly, this was a roll, and I really debated hard about whether I wanted to swap into the Slowking, or if I wanted to stay in and possibly pick up the KO with Strange Theme. After the leftovers, it was a roll, I believe. So what I do here, I try to see if Galarian Weezing can pick up the KO, and unfortunately, my opponent does get the roll that they need. That might not have been a roll, I can't remember what exactly the rolls were, but I believe it was a possibility of a roll. And Galarian Weezing does go down here, unfortunately, but this does mean that Galarian Zapdos does fall to the Future Sight, and we win the game 1-0. It could have been a 2-0, but I wanted to see if I could get Galarian Weezing to pick up the KO, because at that point, the Strange Theme would have KO'd. And I do think that was the safest play to make, but, you know, it is what it is. So, yeah, Slowking picking up 2 KOs in this match with Future Sight, which is really, really cool. Slowking was definitely the MVP of this match, setting up the light screen, setting up the Chilly Reception, setting up the Future Sights. Very, very good Pokemon. I'm very happy with that set. But, yeah, that'll pretty much do it for this video. GG's once again to Eli. What a fantastic game. I really, really enjoyed this battle. And, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap things up here. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys did enjoy. Please be sure to check out my opponent's channel and video down in the description below, as I'm sure the video for this battle is already up, and as the upload was supposed to be on, like, the end date for this upload was supposed to be Sunday, but because of my move and still not having internet as of the time of recording this, today, Wednesday, I wasn't able to upload this, but, you know, it is what it is. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll go and wrap it up here. Please be sure to subscribe, leave a like, and comment down below what you thought of the battle, and I'll see you soon in the next video. Peace out, mates!